We're back for missing another week because we suck.
I personally blame you.
Life is hard, man.
Yeah.
Life is hard to fit stuff in when you're an adult.
Especially when you live, 40 minutes away, drive time?
40 is on a really good day if I'm not obeying traffic laws.
Yeah. Salt Lake's bigger than you think, people.
Yeah, it's really big. Yeah, it takes me about 45, 50 minutes one way to get to your house. So once a week, man, I'm driving like an hour and a half just to do this show because I love it. Speaking of how much we love the show, it is our 3-year anniversary. On the 2nd.
By the time this is released, it'll be our 3-year anniversary.
That's true. 3 years we did this. February the 2nd. And my son turns 3 on the 4th.
Damn.
Yeah. So I get to watch two of my babies grow up right in front of my eyes.
And then they're going to listen to this when they get older and they're like, man, my dad was a jackass.
Yeah. Is it going to be like one of those things like the mullet was back in the day? Well, you had a podcast? What are you, a loser?
You got to film yourself saying embarrassing things.
Yeah. I wonder if the beard is going to be the new mullet. You see a lot of beards anymore.
Oh, yeah. What's going to be out of style 10 years from now? Good point.
Definitely a beard. And a podcast.
You know what drives me nuts?
What's that?
People try to serve you papers. For whatever reason, man, the craziest things, like the sketchiest people have lived in my house. Like the cops have come over 3 times.
That's probably why it's so active on the spirit box and stuff, man.
I've had people try to get served. I was sitting there cooking dinner last night, and it's 7 degrees in Utah the last couple of nights.
Yeah, it's cold.
And that's not Celsius. It's Fahrenheit, so much colder.
Oh, yeah.
And, we get a knock at the door, and it's pitch black. I'm like, who would be out on my porch at this time?
Nobody doing good stuff.
And, I've gotten down to the point where I know, how they serve people. I've never been served myself. You answer the door and they make eye contact, and they'll call you by the person's name they're trying to serve. Hey, is it so and so? And the person last night, I was just irritated. I'm like, he's never he doesn't live here. She's like, oh, is this the address? I'm like, no. I'm like, go away.
I'm not him. This is not the place.
I had my foot behind the door and my arm on the door, and I wondered if she noticed. I mean, the neighborhood's not bad, but someone knocks on your door in the middle of the not in the middle of the night, but 9 p.m.
Late enough to cause problems.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I've never been indirectly served papers either. So hey, you've got an experience I don't.
Yeah. Now I'll know how to avoid it in the future if I owe people money.
But I did watch a movie, and it was by your favorite director ever, Mr. M. Night Shyamalan.
Well, good for you.
I finally watched his last movie, Old. Not a fan.
Yeah, I hate his movies. I've never liked him.
It's funny because I turned it on. I'm like, I hope it's really good so that I can tell Cleet that it was really good. It wasn't good. It's not the worst movie I've seen, but could have been way better.
I honestly think he's just a troll and he purposely makes bad movies. And people just keep giving him money. He's like, really? You're going to let me make another movie?
Right?
He's just a troll.
I watched it for free on HBO, so
I feel like he seriously fucks up his movies.
Genuinely, he's like, how can I piss people off today?
It's part of his art style. He's like, oh, hoo, hoo, hoo.
I mean, I disagree.
Oh, the people killing themselves was because of plants.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not saying that every movie he does is fantastic. He has a couple really good ones.
Yeah, no more.
But he has another one coming out, I think, this weekend, A Knock at the Cabin. That looks actually pretty good.
Yeah, I'm not going to watch it.
I know you won't. What is it going to take, Cleet? What has to happen for you to watch an M. Night Shyamalan movie you haven't seen? What is the price?
I couldn't even trust you because, I think, if you said it was good, you were just trying to trick me. And at the end, you'd be like, ha! Ha!
I mean, the one that you haven't seen that is really good is The Visit. I do think you'd enjoy that one because that one was actually really good. The rest, I think you can skip, for sure.
All right, okay.
But anyway, speaking of our 3 years, we just wanted to go over, because a little bit of shock for us as well as how well our show's growing. Just some stats, some statistics of where we're at. So on Buzzsprout, and they compile things like Spotify and Amazon and Google and Apple. And so overall, as of recording this, we've had 25,200 downloads since being published 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's pretty okay.
And 10% of them were last month.
Yeah, 10% really was last month. It's crazy. So we're going pretty big. And then Cleet has some Spotify stuff. Where are we at on Spotify as far as subs and everything?
We're at 350 subs. And I think with our growth rate, we might be over 1,000 by the end of the year.
That would be really cool. But thank you, everybody, for making this happen. Like, when you see the graphs, it's really cool how we started in February of 2020, just a little tiny fish, and now we're like an even bigger tiny fish in the podcast world. So thanks for making that happen.
Might still get eaten by an eel, but we'll see.
Might get eaten by a guppy. But we're going to do a special episode because we have another viewer submission. Someone wrote into us on the email, and his name is Taz.
And just so you know, entertheabysspod@gmail.com. Please send us your stuff our way.
Yes, it is open and ready for submissions all the time. Doesn't matter. Just send it over and we'll cover it, even if it's just a cool little story you want us to talk about. But Taz says, "Hello, I hope this is the right email." Definitely is, sir. First, just wanted to say I absolutely love your podcast, and y'all are absolutely fucking hilarious to listen to. I've never been able to actually like podcasts. You're the first and currently still the only one I listen to. Ignore that one hate comment that y'all talk too much about your own stones and shit.
Oh, I forgot about that. The woman comment?
Yeah, your own stories and shit, not stones. I don't know where I got stones from. I'm going blind.
You guys are a bunch of ladies.
Yeah, I was like, what are you talking about? Someone really was upset about that episode. Bunch of ladies talking too much about yourself.
Email us.
Yeah. I was like, hey, that's cool. You got to get your first to hate email out of the way. That's my favorite part. Please never stop making episodes. Anyway, I listen to a lot of your episodes and notice a running theme of people experiencing symptoms of psychosis and schizophrenia and whatnot. I was wondering if you could do an episode on the scariest things people with psychosis and schizophrenics have experienced. I have those conditions myself, and I think what's interesting is that we aren't lying about our stories. Yes, technically the delusions and hallucinations aren't real, but it doesn't change the fact that we 100% saw them, felt them, heard them, and experienced them. Every schizo I know has very interesting stories on the scariest thing they've ever experienced, but they're typically not shared around since most don't want to be seen as insane. You don't have to include this in the podcast in case it's too long of a story, sir. It's never too long of a story for Enter the Abyss. My scariest psychosis experience doesn't even compare to the other stories I've come across, but one night I remember just yawning, and when I closed my mouth, there was literally a chunk of food in my mouth. This was the first physical hallucination I've ever experienced. I didn't even know physical hallucinations existed until after this episode. I was rotting in bed all night, no food. It made no sense, but what I felt in my mouth almost felt realer than actual food. I was convinced I had just had food in my mouth and it disappeared. I was immediately scared shitless because I know what I just experienced, but there's nothing in my mouth. I even put my hand in there. Then, my brain decided to go crazy mode and convince myself this was a dream. I don't know how the fuck it works, but everything around me started feeling like a dream. Hopefully you get what I mean.
Sounds like the most rational explanation to that situation.
Right? Like, it just didn't feel like real life. It felt like it was in a lucid dream. I then began panicking because I realized that all dreams end and that I was going to die whenever I woke up, and that my current house and mother would cease to exist.
I feel like that's a philosophical concept. Like, I've heard that somewhere, like, that if we were in a dream, what happens when the dream wakes up?
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, I don't know if I've had that much of a scary thought, but like...
No, it's not scary at all, because it sounds, at least to me, absurd. But I've heard it somewhere that people have thought that before, and like they seriously consider it. It's interesting.
I began thinking that my entire life was one giant dream. I've had that before. And I was about to wake up. This is the most fear I have felt in my entire life, and that's coming from someone who has had some bad trips from substances. Don't lecture me. I don't abuse substances anymore. I immediately texted my mom to come downstairs. I wanted to spend my last moments with her. I was literally petrified in fear. It all ended the moment I fell onto her bed. All rationality kicked in, and I realized I was safe and real. I'm now medicated and have felt basically cured for 2 years, but occasionally there's still nights where I go a little psychotic. Sleeping in my parents' bed is my go-to way to get rid of it. I don't care that I'm 18 and sleeping with my parents because I get scared at night. I'm just glad they keep me rational. Not gonna lie, I get a bit distracted and sidetracked, so I hope my attention span worked out on that last paragraph. Left out a lot of details to keep it as short as possible. Would love to hear Reddit stories of other schizos, especially because there's a lot more fucking scary than mine. Thank you. No, thank you, Taz, and your wishes come true because that is the topic of tonight's episodes. We have found some Reddit threads of some schizophrenic stuff.
Wonderful suggestion, Taz. Let's jump in.
So we're going to start by going over a couple Reddit threads because one of them's a little bit smaller and then one's bigger, so Cleet will tackle the smaller one and I'll kind of work my way down the bigger one, and then we'll meet up in the big one.
The first one is from Ineffable Adams. This one's short, but my God. I occasionally experience a young kid screaming as if being hurt.
Jeez.
Don't have visual hallucinations. Like, oh my God. At first, when I was reading this, I thought it was plural, which is like even worse.
Like several children just screaming.
Do you imagine you have that, but it's like really like, okay, no, your next door neighbor's got some things going on.
like the people living across the street from your house?
Oh, man.
The guy before here at all.
All right, this one is Red Hippie 420.
Oh.
One time, I was hallucinating that my friend Benji was in my room talking to me at like 3 a.m. And I was like fully convinced that he was in my room talking to me, especially when he lives like 45 miles away from me. Next morning, I thought a gigantic ball of yarn was rolling around my house, destroying everything.
What the fuck?
Also, the screaming is annoying. Lol.
That's a hell of a way to end it. Also, the constant screaming sucks.
I'll do one more. This is one from Creative Cream. I'm going to X that. It's just too poorly written. All right, go ahead.
Okay. This comes from Deleted. My friend in college was schizophrenic. We were once hanging out in his dorm room at night, maybe 11 p.m., midnight. He got up to go to the bathroom. He opened the door and stopped, staring at the empty hallway. He asked me to come to the door and tell him if something seemed weird. I walk up to the door and see nothing strange in the hall, and I tell him so. He asks me if I can hear something. I say no. He said he heard muffled crying or arguing or something coming from down the hall, and he saw a pitch-black hallway when it was actually fully lit. He said the hall was black, not just dark or dimly lit. At this point, he's shaking, and I'm terrified because I don't know he's sick. We're both on the verge of tears. I'm not even sure he knew he was sick at the time. I ended up walking him to the bathroom and then spending the night in his room because he could still hear someone crying in the hallway. I thought for the longest time that he was pulling my leg, but he ended up going to therapy and getting on some meds very shortly after that night, so it was a terrifying and very real moment for him too. That's freaky, man. Just like staring down a hallway that you imagine is just pitch black with someone crying or moaning.
Ugh.
It's not okay, man.
The Ring 4.
This is from Deserix3. Brother is schizophrenic and had insane hallucinations for about a year before I could get him help. He constantly believed people were assaulting him, trying to rape him, and trying to kill him. Ooh. On one occasion, he ran so long to get away from them that he was admitted into the hospital for heat exhaustion. He didn't understand why we wouldn't help him and would lash out at us. He's now severely medicated and nowhere near the person he once was.
This one is from Carl the Frog. I wasn't diagnosed when it first started. I had no idea what was happening. It felt totally real at the time. I had been in the Army at the time and grew suspicious that my unit and the Army as a whole were singling me out and trying to diagnose me with a mental disability. I thought I was being psychologically experimented on. I snapped out of it after seeking treatment from the VA and being reassured that nothing like this was actually happening. I'm not in that delusional state anymore, but sometimes it's hard to believe that none of it was real. And this one is from Real Atlas Games. I was at the psych ward staring out of the hospital window at night, and in the reflection, I saw a girl with long, dark hair, a large torn dress, but she was floating and glowing, like the light of heaven was illuminating from behind her. I stared at it. Yeah, pretty much. I stared at it for a good 10 seconds before turning around and she was gone. 2 years later, I can still see her in my mind, clear as day.
Okay, so this comes from Poodle Puzzles. I have psychosis, and it usually is worse when I'm alone or at night. Doubly so if I'm alone at night. When I was house training my puppy, I had him outside at 3 a.m., and I saw what looked like some witches having a seance. I then heard whispers mentioning killing and saw the group start walking up the street towards my house. Thankfully, that's the worst it's ever been. I do still have minor fleeting hallucinations when I'm stressed, but it's more like seeing a shadow out of the corner of my eye and is much easier to ignore. This is from Deleted. Somebody I knew back in high school had schizophrenia, but was taking medication for it. She accidentally skipped a dose once, and she came to school hysterical that she didn't want to go back home because she heard someone chewing human meat under her bed. Good God. Human meat. How does one even know what that sounds like? Like, how would you be like, they're chewing human meat?
It's extra chewy.
So I want to read the comment on this one. So the comment from that one comes from Only Glass. The same way you just know things in a dream in ways that don't make sense in the waking world. You mistake schizophrenia for being like reality. In reality, you'd hear a noise, then recognize it for what it is or figure out what it is. In schizophrenia, hallucinations are spontaneous knowledge that come all at once. You know what you are hearing and its implication. It's not like you hear a knock and use deductive reasoning to figure out it's a person buried between your walls. You simply know that there is a dead person in the walls knocking on them, trying to come out.
I was just thinking that. That makes sense. Like, that's kind of how it is when you just have a dream and something ridiculous happens, but you know just the implications.
Know. Yeah. That's a good point. Like, I've never thought of it that way. Like, so when you are having those auditory or visual hallucinations, like, your brain is filling in the gaps of what it is. So it's not completely random.
And you believe it.
That's wild.
All right, this one is from I Don't Know, Just Bored.
Hey.
First off, I just want to say I have hallucinations categorized as psychosis instead of schizophrenia. They do this when your symptoms don't quite line up with, aren't bad enough for the regular diagnoses. And I can tell you, I have actually pissed myself in fear from some of my hallucinations. I can't even imagine how bad it must be for people whose symptoms line up with schizophrenia. As for my scariest hallucination, it will always be my first visual hallucination. I was in school, like 10th grade, and I'd heard voices for a bit now, to the point that I was almost getting used to the fact that I could hear things others don't. I remember getting up from my desk to use a toilet, and when I got out of the room, I see this man with no face, just standing there facing me. At first, I just thought my eyes were messing with me, so I blink a couple times, shake my head up a little bit, and look back. And he's gone. No way he could have just moved in those empty, silent hallways without me hearing it, but he's gone. So I just go to the bathroom thinking it's kind of weird, but not thinking too much about it. I even joked with myself that now I'm seeing things too, haha. But when I got to the bathroom, he's there again, standing in the doorway. I stop and just kind of stare for a second, more curious than anything. Then I think, well, maybe he's just wearing a mask or something. And I ask if he can move over and let me in the bathroom. But then this other kid comes out and asks who I'm talking to, right as he walks through the faceless guy. I just stand there speechless, because what do you say in that situation? The kid looks at me like I'm weird, but then just walks away. The dude with no face moves over to the let me by, and I give him as wide a berth as I can while I go in, never taking my eyes off him. He followed me into the bathroom, and a few seconds later this girl walks in, and I begin telling her that she's in the wrong bathroom. I'm a guy, FYI. When I notice that she doesn't have a face either. They both begin walking towards me, and at that point I'm pretty damn scared. So I go and hide in one of these stalls and bawl my eyes out. Because at this point I realize that I'm pretty much just crazy. I didn't come out until the staff came and talked me into it. The two of them, the guy and the girl, show up every now and then. Again, note, I've since graduated and moved away from there, but they still show up wherever I am. But they never do anything. So I don't know what to make of it, but the first time scared the living shit out of me. Like, that was scary as hell.
Yeah, that's wild. Okay, this is from Engineer 1822, and he's an EMS. I had a patient with schizophrenia once, full visual and auditory hallucinations, off of his meds and screaming in public. Demons were coming out of the ground trying to grab him. They were yelling at him various obscene things. Weird part was that once we were on scene, he calmed down and recognized the uniforms. Fully cooperative, but that was an interesting patient history. Are you having hallucinations? Yep, describes them in detail. So how are you so calm right now? This is normal when I'm off my meds and I know I'm in an ambulance. This was normal for him.
Oh, man.
Good Lord. It's wild, man. This is from Stream Stroller. My mom worked at a placement home for high-functioning mentally ill people. Occasionally, they would go off their meds and start the cycle down into their illness again. One woman called screaming because there were demons in her shoes. If she put her shoes on, they would crawl into her feet by going under her toenails and then invade her body from the legs up.
Oh my
Jesus
God.
Christ.
That could be a movie.
That sounds painful.
Demon shoes.
The demons under the toenails. This is from Philosophy. My best friend is schizophrenic. I was chatting with him on a skateboard break on the north side of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He flinched suddenly, really hard. Later told me he saw a man run up on me with a hatchet and slice me to pieces. Oh, holy Lord. Can you ask him how the real hallucinations look? That's the first comment. Yeah, it looks like me being slaughtered. Looks like you being slaughtered and cut to pieces.
This one is from The Girl from the Stars. One of the veins in my eye was actually a worm that was eating my brain, and that is why I had headaches.
Jesus.
Also, random sharp pains and itches are bugs crawling all over my skin, trapped in my shoes, etc. I double-check my shoes every time. I put them on with a flashlight, but still have to take them off and occasionally check.
Can you imagine? Like we're gonna jump into like conspiracy theory here. What if like it is like the Matrix and our itches are just bugs crawling on our skin in real life?
No, if it was the Matrix, it would just be data, just zeros and ones all the way
But
down.
not specifically the Matrix. What if like our brain is somewhere in a jar and there's a bug crawling on us?
Oh, yeah, on the brain.
Yeah.
I see.
Or burrows into your brain. That's how you get a headache.
There's a primantis on my brain.
There's ants on my penis.
All right, this is from Brazier O. Fliv of Live. Brazier of Live. Snipers. One Friday evening I was watching TV and happened to be playing with a flashlight that I'd left on the coffee table. Boom. Next thing you know, I'm in a full-blown hallucination. I heard a Special Forces team out the window as they were sneaking out of my backyard. I flashed the light around the room and they got quiet, and they misunderstood my intent. They thought the light was a mount of a rifle. Next thing you know, they're calling me outside as part of the SWAT response. I'm on my hands and knees on my porch in the dead of night, asking them to please not shoot me. I must have stayed out there for about 2 hours with my hands locked behind my head, as the snipers got more and more nervous about what I might do. Eventually, they decided that there was no way to defuse the situation, and they shot me. I spent about 5 minutes laying dead on my front porch, then crawled inside my house to die.
Jesus Christ.
I phoned my mom to let her know that I had been shot and that the Special Forces had killed me. Needless to say, she wasn't buying it and talked me down to earth a little bit. But this wasn't the end of it. She had me go to the ER and stayed with me on the phone till I got there. I'm still in a full-blown hallucination mode, so while I'm waiting in the ER, I hear the leader of the Special Forces unit chatting with the front desk nurse. He knows why I'm there and coming to get me. Luckily, the doctor found me first and didn't really know what to do at the time, so he gave me 2 milligrams of Ativan and discharged me. So I drove home, still hallucinating, and now somewhat high from the Ativan, and I see all types of crazy stuff on the way home. Once I get home, the Ativan mellows the hallucinations and do something enjoyable, and I spend the rest of the weekend with playful hallucinations. I can't really describe the fear of having Special Forces snipers aiming at you for 2 hours straight. Oh my God, that must have been like exhausting.
Yeah, that's a trip. Okay, this is from Dieselite. Fortunately, the scariest I've ever had is just people calling my name from another room when I know I'm the only person in the house. That's enough to make me shit myself, dude.
Right? Britain. Britain, come
Just
in the
sitting in the
bathroom.
living room. Britain, what the fuck? I'm out. My audible hallucinations don't have a great vocabulary, and most of the time just sounds like someone doing jazz scat.
What the hell is that?
Which is kind of annoying and makes it hard to sleep. Yeah, I don't think I could sleep with jazz scat going on. You don't know what jazz scat is? Like,
You for real?
yeah, dude. You don't know what jazz scat?
That's so. But you're just like trying
go
to
listen to it.
Like,
dude.
will you keep it down?
I'm trying to sleep.
You've been doing that for hours.
Shut the fuck up. It's the same goddamn thing. Oh.
I feel bad, but that's a little funny.
Yeah, that's great. That would piss me off. I'm not gonna lie. I don't do scat when I'm trying to sleep at all. Okay. I think it's hilarious that you're just finding out what jazz scat is.
It's just for hours in the bathroom. You're hearing that.
Shut up! For fuck's sakes! Imagine if your schizophrenia is just scat. Oh my lord. Okay, gotta get through this. Visually, I'll sometimes see people standing in windows who aren't there on a second glance. I can't. I just keep thinking of fucking scat. Or small shadows darting around like mice. God damn it.
Someone's laughed. Wow. Dude, stop.
I'm not doing anything, man. You're making it hard to read this. Okay.
Focus.
Yeah. I'm extremely fortunate that my symptoms are relatively mild. I don't think that's mild, man. Oh. Oh, man.
That's why we need a third person. Like, sub me out. Sub me out. Okay, I'm done. Let's go. Come on. You playing it?
Just what? See?
When you keep it down
For hours and hours and hours. Oh my God. Yeah, that's not mild. If someone's calling my name when no one else is home, that's not mild. Okay, I'll read the next one. This is from Kanika. Schizoaffective disorder here. See?
Let me go.
Let me sleep. Please. Look, skibbity dibbity. You see, like, skibbity dibbity. Shut up.
Let me sleep.
You've been scatting for hours. I can't even hear myself think. Is it even good scat? Oh, God. Okay. Schizoaffective disorder here, but that's close enough, I think. Most of the time, my hallucinations are pretty mundane, but I do recall a few extreme ones. Most of all would have to have been the time that I was convinced I was being abducted by aliens. Oh, damn. I was in bed and staring at the ceiling when a bright light appeared like a circle above me, and I felt like I was being raised up into the air from a center point in my chest. I could see shadowy figures gathered all around the bed looking at me, being lifted, and they were all whispering. But the whispers gradually grew louder until it was like the sound of wind. This is kind of more of like
Sleep paralysis.
Sleep paralysis, yeah. Very frightened, but obviously unscathed. That had to have been the most intense hallucination I've had in my life. Sometimes I've been known to talk to, apparently disturbing, things that aren't there, but I have dissociative amnesia and don't often remember doing so. That's all filled in by people I know who have... God damn it, Khalid. A little laugh. I was like, what the fuck? Thought we were over this. Aliens scatting,
Dude,
bringing me up.
He got me deep, man.
You're not gonna be able to sleep tonight because you're gonna hear the scats. You're gonna hear the scat. Skibbity dibbity doo. Fucking hours. I'm gonna install a speaker in your house with just endless scat. You're like, fucking
10
stop.
hours of scat.
Oh my God. I think people do that for fun. That's all filled in by people I know who have observed me, though I never really know if they're telling me the truth, which does bug me quite a bit. I have a lot of paranoia surrounding people telling me what I've done in dissociative episodes, and them just lying to me to get me to think a certain way about myself or something. You good, dude?
Just ignore me.
I can't.
Let it go.
Because you're turning around just laughing, and I can hear it. Oh, okay. Now it's your turn. Good luck, buddy. Reading through. Skibbity dibbity doo bop.
So you did this one?
You don't even know which one I did.
Thank God,
I
man.
did. I'm gone. I did Kanika.
All right, Kanika.
Yeah, so you're on distressed carbon. You're right there, man. Skibbity dab, skibbity doo bop. I can't believe you never knew what scat was.
I wish I never knew.
You'll never be the same. You'll never be the same. What a shitty schizo episode.
For hours. Okay. This one is from I think I'm defeated, man. Stop.
Game over for Cleed. I think I'm defeated, man.
This one is from Distressed Carbon. I'm not a schizophrenic, but I get psychotic episodes. My hallucinations tend to stick to one sense, but sometimes kind of bleed into each other.
Ooh.
I often hallucinate bugs on the surfaces that aren't there, and I try to squish them without anything happening.
Just starting to beat the bejesus out of his desk. Fucking beetle!
I suppose the scariest one was my body lying on the floor on my bedroom, and it was wheezing. Ooh. For me. Each sense has a different impact when I hallucinate something. Hearing something is extremely distracting and annoying, but isn't scary anymore. Seeing something usually spikes my fear response, as well as the tactile hallucinations. Thank God it's never happened before, that a hallucination was occupying all of my senses at the same time. I'm not sure if I could handle that.
Seeing your body on the floor wheezing would be enough to put me away.
This one is from High PH Bitch. It's not a specific hallucination, but sometimes I have very vivid memories of things that didn't happen, and they make me second guess every single thing that I can remember or know, because if my memory failed me once, why wouldn't it fail me twice? And then everything spirals downwards. Imagine if someone's just gaslighting you, like, dude, that never happened. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Jeez.
We never went to Nickelcade. I hate you. It's like, oh my God.
Skibbity doo bap bap.
Okay, let's. This one is from EM Toothless. That's it.
Yeah.
Primarily auditory hallucinations here. Once experienced the onset of an episode during which one of my familiar voices died violently, cried for help through direct interaction with me, and continued to let out tortured cries the entire time until I was heavily sedated. Came to approximately a day later, and I haven't heard from them since. I've experienced darker and objectively more disturbing content from them, but hearing one of them cry for help as it passed was one of the hardest hallucinations I've ever experienced. Yeah, that's really sad.
This is from Satan's Honda. Satan drives a Honda. Did you know that?
Damn it. Start it with a screwdriver.
Had a patient with Lewy body dementia. Not schizophrenia, but produced horrific hallucinations. I was working knock shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and my office was close to her room. She would scream and scream and scream all night long. I would go and sit with her and ask her if something was scaring her. She saw people waiting in the shadows in the corner of her room. Jesus Christ, I don't like that. She heard them laughing, saw their faces contorting. She felt rats crawling up and down her body, felt them crawling into her and oh, Jesus Christ. Felt them crawling inside her, biting her from the inside, then coming out of her eyes. She was still pretty She was still pretty with it, and you were able to have lucid conversations with her, had a sense of humor like you would not believe. She knew what she was experiencing were hallucinations, but that didn't make them any less real to her. Eventually, she stopped being able to discern what was real and what wasn't. She died a few months ago. I worked with her for 2 years and miss her every damn day, but I'm grateful that she's no longer suffering. The people in the corners laughing, that's crazy.
Yeah, well, paranoid, so they see shadows that are targeting them. Yeah.
And I'm going to read one of the comments from Browns0528. Lewy body dementia is no joke. I work in a physical therapy clinic. We had a patient come in who was diagnosed with LBD while she was being treated. She was convinced that there were 2 men who were driving an hour every night to kick her in the knees. That's very specific. Jesus Christ.
Were they the same people going,
Screw that, kick your kneecap.
kick me in the knee and left. What the hell?
Just scat it on here, kicked her in the knee and scat it out. Like, what the fuck is this? Knee pain being why she was in the clinic. Osteoarthritis with no sign of trauma. She was also convinced that they were feeding her dog poison, poking holes in her shoes and throwing away her paperwork. Really sweet lady, seemed completely lucid until she'd start to talk about those 2 men. She told us when she got her diagnosis that she couldn't figure out why the doctor would say she had that. She couldn't connect how absurd her hallucinations were and 100% believed they were real.
This one is from Thinking About Cats.
Oh.
Not a schizophrenic, but I hallucinated a fair bit as a teen, and still sometimes now. Unsure of what triggers them, it just happens, no drugs involved. The most unnerving thing I've seen was a creature as tall as the inside of a house stooped over my neighbor's veranda.
Good God.
It looked like a person, but stretched out, hollow face and eyes, just staring at me. I would look away for a minute and then back, and it was still staring, just watching. I was 16 at the time, and I'd see smaller versions of these guys everywhere, but this one was huge, and it refused to go. Eventually, I fell asleep, and he wasn't there when I woke back up.
Thank God.
Am I? This one is from Deleted. Hey, finally a question I can answer. I have voices that tell me they're necromancers trying to steal my soul and take over my body. Jesus.
Good God.
They try to convince me they're real people all day, every day. The scariest time was when my heart was beating incredibly fast, and they told me that they had control of my heart and were going to speed it up until they killed me. At one point, I totally believed that they were real, but I don't anymore. I proved them to be just voices with logic, thanks to some help from the internet. Oh, thanks, internet.
You're a real pal.
This one is from Way Lano Pello. I've been treated with a schizoaffective disorder for most of my life, with a family history of it. I take an antipsychotic and a mood stabilizer multiple times daily, hoping that qualifies me for this thread. I live in a sleepy town and in a particularly closed subsection of the town where everyone knows everyone. I woke up one morning and felt quite fine, drank my morning coffee and walked to the door to let my cat out. As I closed the door, I saw a rather large man with no t-shirt on run full speed into my neighbor's backyard, and he disappeared behind my neighbor's house. Obviously, this set off a panic in me. Why was he running? What was he doing in Brad's backyard at 7 a.m., half naked? The problem with delusions and hallucinations is that during one, you are so sure that they are real, there's no doubt in your mind, and thus no matter how outlandish the idea of some random person trespassing with no shirt on seems to you, and now at that time, I was hellbent and determined to find out who this guy was. The police arrested me in Brad's backyard screaming and ranting in boxers and a bathrobe that a man that doesn't exist was there doing exactly what I was doing.
Jesus Christ.
I know that you're all probably hoping for horror stories or tales of imagining ghosts or dragons, but real horror is seeing your entire town watch you get carried away as a loony, all when you thought that you were helping the community. My greatest fear is not that some uninspired monster, but rather that one day I won't know what's real anymore. Damn.
That is a real
That's
fear.
deep.
Like schizophrenia is a scary thought, or like Alzheimer's, where you just do not remember.
Yeah, that'd be bad.
That's actually a really terrifying thought. Okay, this comes from Deleted. No diagnosis here, but I've been suffering from constant delusions, paranoia, and hallucinations for the past 2 years. The scariest hallucination I've ever had took place in a Target. I was in the canned food aisle when I saw a little girl grab a can. There was nothing particularly unusual about it. I, at first, figured it was just a girl getting something off the shelf for her mom. But then, after a while of standing there with the can in her hands in silence, she turned around and stared at me with her empty eye sockets. She opened the can and started chasing me around with the store with the can top. They're really sharp. And I started running through the store to escape. I know it's stupid, but it felt really real. Anyway, I ended up tripping, and the next thing I knew, she handed me the can top and was controlling my arms. I felt myself cut my neck and wrists open and was basically screaming. But then, I knocked myself out of it. When I came to, I was just standing there staring at the cans with tears streaming down my face. It's the most vivid hallucination I've ever had, and much scarier than the ones I have every day.
Oh my God.
That's wild. Those can tops are scary, dude. Like, when you rip them off and throw it in the trash can, like, those things are sharp. I always worry, like, when I'm pushing the trash down to make room, that I'm going to cut my finger off. This is from Roboraptor 3000. You mentioned visual and auditory hallucinations, but tactile hallucinations are terrifying. Bugs crawling on your skin all night, being tapped on the shoulder, someone breathing on the back of your neck. Shit's awful. The scariest auditory hallucination I've ever had was someone breathing under my bed. Luckily, I had insight. Basically, I could hear it, but I knew it was a hallucination. So I didn't, start to try to hit the person under my bed. But God, I was sitting paralyzed in my bed all night. You good? You were there Googling scat.
Skibbity-boppity-boo.
Skibbity-dappity-doo. Kick you in the kneecap.
See you next week.
Skibbity-bop-a-dap-bop-boo.
I know 2 hours here.
Skibbity-dibbity. Jesus Christ, man.
That's normal.
Every fucking night. I can't sleep. Why is that? The scat. For 5 hours.
Satan Honda. All right.
Satan's Honda. Satan drove a school bus full of kids. Never came back.
This one is from Deleted. My girlfriend worked with some extreme cases for a while. One woman whose schizophrenia was brought on by trauma frequently saw and smelt human beings being burned alive. Oh my God. Usually babies and children, even worse.
Ay.
That's because that's one of the things she saw in real life, which resulted in the schizophrenia.
What?
All of the ladies she worked with and were horribly institutionalized, but now lived in a nice assisted living facility where all medicated and go live independently as possible. Holy fuck. That woman had some horrible things happen to her. Man.
But I'll say, if that's something she regularly sees.
All right, this one is from Yama Jack.
You fucker.
Not officially diagnosed with schizophrenia or anything to do with hallucinations, but I do frequently have hallucinations. I should probably see somebody, but they aren't getting in the way of me doing anything, so meh. When I talked to my counselor so many years ago, she said that as long as they aren't asking me to do anything, they aren't a big deal. So I feel like there's a dividing line between people with hallucinations and people with hallucinations that actually talk/interact with them. Most of the hallucinations I have involved spiders crawling on my walls. Sometimes I'll look over and there'll be a giant spider or thousands of tiny spiders crawling along my walls. Sometimes there'll be one regular sized spider in the corner with a maze of webs surrounding it. It typically happens at night while I'm in bed or shortly after I wake up, which leads me to believe it's related to some sleeping thing. Another frequent one I get is a specific series of knocks on my bedroom door. Jesus. At first, the hallucination freaks me right the fuck out. Giant spiders on my wall? Fuck that.
Yeah.
But over time, I've started to be able to recognize the difference between reality and my hallucinations. The problem is that while I can logically tell the difference and understand what I'm seeing isn't real, I can still see it. My brain still says, yo, there's a thingy here. That's what it said. You got to deal with it. It's so funny. And that's what's scary to me. These hallucinations are so real that they overwhelm any logic or reason that I know I have. They make me do things that I wouldn't otherwise be doing. If I heard somebody knock on my door right now, I would go open it. Even if I know there's nobody on the other side of the door, I would still get up and open it. And that's terrifying to me. Why would I open a door for somebody if I know that somebody doesn't exist? Why would I get up and grab the bug spray if I know the bug doesn't exist? It still makes me feel like I don't have control of my life or my own self, and that's infinitely more scary than any hallucination I've ever had. Damn.
The spider one is not good. This one is from insert usernames here. I'm not schizophrenic, but my partner has schizoaffective disorder and doesn't mind me posting here. The creepiest thing he's told me about would be the shadow people that he used to see. He doesn't see them anymore, but when he was a child, he would see them floating over the top of people like his mom and stepdad, or they would pop their heads around the corner. He says they were like floating people, but made out of darkness or like black smoke. He said most of the time they ignored him, but once his mom was in the kitchen making food, and when he went in, one was over the top of her and then turned its head to look at him. It's so creepy and makes me sad thinking about my boyfriend having to feel so scared all the time as a small child.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that freaked me out. All this fucking shadow people floating over your family. This is from pint-sized pachyderm. Not schizophrenic, but am bipolar, and was investigated for schizophrenia while they were trying to diagnose me due to hallucinations. I initially heard what I thought was a broken radio both in my home and car for about 6 months. I just moved homes with my then boyfriend and therefore was quick to dismiss noises I didn't recognize. However, I began to be 100% convinced that a couple were living in the garage and wanted to hurt me. I refused to ever go into the garage, and the one time I did with my significant other, he noted a door was open, and I sprinted away with the torch and was midway texting his mom that he was probably dead when she came back in, reasonably pissed. You don't just text someone else is dead.
Your son's dead.
What? A few months later, I had the scariest night of my life. I had just broken up with my above significant other for various reasons, but somewhat including absolute paranoia and panic. Having just told him it was over, I went to the bathroom to cry. I looked down and my entire body was covered in spiders. I freaked. Couldn't turn to him for help, obviously, so went back to the spare room. An hour after that, I heard two voices, about 20 centimeters behind me over my right shoulder in unison, growl, "It's coming." Jesus. Startled, I looked up to see a black, tall figure in the corner of the room. Imagine the same shape as a really tall Queen's Guard and very, very evil. At this point, I ran out of the room back to my significant other, who understandably kicked me back out. He had since apologized and didn't know what was going on, just as I was acting crazy. I left the next day for 2 months. Moved back when my significant other left and have been happy without many incidences since. I often describe bipolar as having small tasters of other mental disabilities, but the luck of only having them temporarily. My pet psychiatrists all initially thought that I had schizophrenia when I was first admitted. And if what I experienced was half as bad as the actual disease, I am eternally grateful I'm not. Damn.
Paranoid schizophrenia here. My scary visions are usually in the early morning, but one time at around 2 p.m. I was standing in front of my vanity mirror applying makeup for the day. I started to hear the running of feet. Figuring it was my roommate at the time, I thought nothing of it. It wasn't. All of a sudden, a figure burst into my room. It was only about 4 feet tall, no arms, just legs, and was covered head to toe in dark, blood-stained skin. Jesus. Where its eyes were originally placed was just more skin folds.
Ugh.
It ran around the room making barely audible grunts. If I had to think of a video game enemy that it looked like, I would say that cowman from the forest.
No idea.
I'm going to Google it.
Cowman from the forest. Jesus fuck.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
All right, where was I totally... That was my first visual hallucination, and afterwards I locked myself in the bathroom and cried until my husband came home from work.
I can see why. The thing is freaky.
This one is from O. Shelbs. I am in charge of a program at a mental health agency that serves people with chronic mental health disorders such as schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, borderline personality disorder, and many more mental health diagnoses.
Oh, Shelbs.
We run group homes in which these individuals can live and work on their skills to be productive in their community and live as they are able. The clients we serve are the most chronic in terms of their diagnoses and have severe and persistent symptoms. I've worked with clients that are consistently see images of doorknobs and mirrors in which they are slitting their own throat.
Oh, what the fuck?
Have paranoid hallucinations in which they believe a hospital planted a brain controlling and listening device in their brain because he knew that the doctor murdered the client's own cousin, and many other horrifying symptoms. On a lighter note, a gentleman we provide services to consistently hallucinates that he runs a strip club and that he interacts with the hallucinationary strippers by yelling at them to go back to the pole, bitch, and other colorful demands.
No.
I'm just reading what he wrote.
Oh, no. Back to the pole, bitch.
What the
You
fuck
can't
is
say that. Jesus Christ. So clearly he's not the guy to run a strip club.
Oh, man.
Or I guess it's what, gentlemen's clubs?
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Sure.
You got to go there sometime and yell that.
Back to the pole, bitch. Scabby doo back me that boo. I came to see scat and titties. All right. Well, that will wrap up our episode on the schizophrenic experiences and hallucinations from Reddit. But again, thank you, Taz, for suggesting that. And thanks for your story and for being vulnerable about it. It's really awesome. If you have any suggestions, any of our listeners, please send them our way at entertheabysspod@gmail.com. And a very, very big thanks to all of you for making this an awesome 3 years. And here's to many, many more.
If you're listening to us on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe, as well as on Spotify. You guys really just keep us going, and eventually we're going to be starting a Patreon. Hopefully we hit 1,000 subs by the end of the year. And as always, skibbity-dobbity-doo. Thank you for entering the abyss.
Until next time.